You are listening to the ReRACEables podcast. Hello and welcome to the ReRACEables podcast. I'm your host, Tom. I'm excited to be joined by two guests today, Leo and Alana from Amazing Race Season 32. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, we're so happy to be here.
Thank you for having us over.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. So I'd like to start off. I am a recent married guy.
I noticed your shirt.
As you can see.
Congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
should have worn my married AF shirt that I wore yesterday.
So obviously we are learning about you in the race, and it happens 2 years ago, but I understand also that you've gotten married since. So tell me about your wedding, because our wedding with my wife has been COVID crazy, and I would love to hear about your wedding.
Did you make sure everyone got COVID?
Yeah. It was
then it's actually better. No, we had this original wedding plan that was like everyone we'd ever met, like everyone from the cast,
everyone from the race.
Like it was really and our race is really close. Like we're going to take the guest list of that big wedding and hopefully do it next year. But like when COVID hit, like LOL, our camp was we were planning to have our camp our wedding at a summer camp, like
sleeping in cabins,
which is like truly the least COVID safe thing you can do. Like all buffet meals, everyone crammed into like little tiny Boy Scout cabins.
Yeah.
Like it was just really, so when all of that hit, we were like
flipping slides.
Yeah, it was just like
summer camp.
So it was summer camp.
We were hoping someone would lose their virginity.
Yeah, we were excited about it. But then we just switched it. We did something in our we have a little backyard here in Somerville, which has really been a blessing.
Near Boston.
Yeah, near Boston. Which has really been a blessing in COVID and was like such a boon for our wedding because it's just big enough to fit like the 15 people.
Our wedding party.
Yeah.
Yep. So close family, our wedding party, including Kaylee and Halen. Wow. Haley, Hay and Kay, Haley and Kaylin.
I'll edit that out.
Yeah, you don't need to.
Fine.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like half the time
I'm
on
not
the
the
race
only one. So including Haley and Kaylin.
Yeah.
And we grow a garden, vegetables, wildflowers, in the backyard, like a little lawn postage stamp surrounded by our garden boxes. And Labor Day in Boston is a time when everything's in bloom. And, we had like the wildflowers were in bloom in mid-August, and we were like, just stay alive, guys.
Yeah, truly.
And they just kept coming.
We were
they just kept blooming.
Like pacing around our garden being like, don't die. Like everything, this is literally our decor.
Like the last week before the wedding.
Like if these flowers, if this broccoli, like if everything goes south.
I would get up every morning and like water it with lukewarm water, like nice and comfortable.
But I mean, honestly, it was really wonderful. And in a lot of ways it was like, in a lot of ways it was a better wedding because it was so much more intimate.
We ended up kind of looking back on it and thinking, what if we had just planned this in the first place, done it a year ago, had a COVID-free backyard wedding.
Seriously. I mean, right. Like in addition to it being like very beautiful in our backyard, blah, 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 we were also like making sure everyone was wearing masks and handing out hand sanitizer bottles that I'd like decorated so they looked cute. Like you're like, what are you doing with a COVID wedding? Like it was a fun challenge for our creativity.
And like to the point of maybe we could have just done it this way in the first place. To me, COVID in so many ways has shown people what's possible, like working remotely at a job that previously thought you couldn't possibly be remote, having a smaller wedding, and like enjoy. Like I never would have thought I could have a small wedding because I have such a big family, cousins, and I've been at all their weddings, right? So I really felt like that was not that anyone would have been offended, but it just felt like the right thing to do to include everyone in that like big family way. And it turns out that like so many people tuned into a live stream. Like it was very meaningful. We now have that live stream like forever, as well as the chat that was happening during it.
Yep.
So did you have something similar?
We did. We had a 37 person. We had a dinner. We had the first look and the dances and all the core stuff that really means a lot. But then the added bonus, like you guys, we had the Zoom and we had the chat. We had the gallery view and seeing people's expressions.
Oh, I love that.
And I never in a million years would you ever have said, oh, let's live stream it and have the gallery view so we could see people's views of
people were watching our wedding in their pajamas,
which is so fun, right? Like the stories of how people tune into your wedding becomes like a story in and of itself. Yeah, it was really fun, and we really cut it down. Like we didn't do dances, we did toasts and the ceremony, and that was basically it.
A photo booth
and a photo. Yeah, I made like a little photo booth thing. Like we didn't order. I made like I borrowed a Polaroid camera from a friend and decorated a corner of our backyard. Like, let's be honest about. But it was great. It was I was jealous. I aspired to my Pinterest board, and I succeeded about 50% of the time, which honestly for
we
Pinterest,
had stumps.
For Pinterest feels great. Yeah.
You know, Pinterested stumps around.
Well, I'm really happy that worked out, and it sounds like you had a similar experience to my wife and I. So that's
wonderful.
I bet. Yeah.
So let's go to the pre-race. So I'm always interested in each of the interviews I've done. I love to hear everyone's story of how they went from person on the couch to person getting a phone call.
Yeah.
At the start line.
Yeah. Do you want to answer that?
Sure. Well, we were on the couch with a couple of friends. It was one of our first dates, actually, with some roommates. Sorry, the cat's throwing things off the counter in the other room.
Yeah, you might hear that.
And the Amazing Race was on. They were big fans. Alana had watched growing up. I had seen like half an episode, and we had that conversation where they said, you guys would be great on the race. And
I mean, they said it like sort of a joke, right?
Yeah,
like they say it like you say to a friend, like you're like, you guys would be great on the race.
But that's the conversation that I think a lot of people have. Like, you'd be great on the Amazing Race. And it's like, sure, or maybe, or never, whatever your response is. And then you don't think about it. And a few months later, I don't know why you looked up like whether casting was open.
I think that the real context for us as a couple is that and especially me, like I love projects. Like I like having like a little thing to do that's like separate from sort of looming goals that I have in my life, like write a book and other stuff that good luck to me on. And I was like, this would be a fun project we could do in a day. Like what a satisfying, hilarious thing to do. That's a funny story that I can like check off a little to-do box and like, then we'll make dinner. And that was really what we did. Like I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, they're casting in like Schenectady or something, New York. Like, do we drive to Schenectady? And then Leo was like, no, we could just send a video. And so we just made a video. Like, it was so simple. Like, and I think we didn't overthink it. I mean, we like, obviously we're like rule followers. We like read through all the criterion and we were like, got it. These are the things we need to say in our interview. But like, it really was, it's like a 90-second video.
Yeah, we did it for fun, basically. Yeah. It was actually, we had just moved in together and it was one of our first like evenings. We were making dinner and then we made the video basically. I will say, I think kind of a potent intersection between me and Alana is that Alana is the way she just described with projects, right? When you give me a project, I'm more, I can really latch on. And like my thought was, yeah, we're going to make this one video for fun. But if we don't get cast, we're going to make another video for the rest of our lives.
Well, Leo was convinced we were going to get cast. And I was like, no, like basically there's no way. Like
what I meant to say is just in case we don't get cast, we'll make more videos.
But I was just like, there's no way. Like what a silly thing that we did that was funny for us. And now we have this funny video of like one thing that we did in our lives. And then
we like posted on Facebook. We were like, we applied, good luck to us, which I don't recommend doing because once we found out we were in the process, we quickly realized we should delete that post.
Yeah, which was really funny. Yeah. But I really like, you know, as with some of the most momentous things that happen in your life, like you don't realize it at the time. We were just like, it was like I went on another Tinder date. It just happened to be with Leo. Now we're married, you know, like, but at the time you're like, whatever, I'm going to this coffee shop where I've been on 3 dates in the last like 4 months, like whatever.
She actually canceled or postponed our first Tinder date at the last minute, which was, I'm fairly convinced, sort of a test to see if I would become toxically aggressive when I was told, you know, it was a Monday, so it's not like I would have planned anything else anyway.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, really not feeling it. And I was like, all right, how about tomorrow?
And I was like, fine, whatever.
Another Tinder success story. That's awesome.
Right.
So let's go back to the video though. What was it just so authentic? Or was it just did it capture you? What was in the video?
Honestly, I think it was a lot like this. Like, this is how we are. We don't really know how to be another way, and we don't really want to be.
Yeah, and honestly, like, so much of our casting process was people sort of thinking that the way that we are is, like, we kept being accused of being in a honeymoon phase where they were like, oh, you guys really like each other and get on like this because you're a new couple, and like just wait until you really at each other. And we were like, no.
Or wait until you're really bored of each other.
Yeah, and we were just sort of like, but no, though. Also, like, we're not like 22-year-olds in a new relationship. We've both been in like pretty serious relationships that ended on purpose, and so like we knew what we were doing when we picked each other, and it was just like, it was very funny to like have to continue to. We were like, this is just how we are. Like,
it's one of those things where like most of the time you could say that most of the time when someone's like really sure about a person that they've only known for 1 or 2 months, most of the time they'll be wrong.
Right.
Sometimes they'll be right. They'll always think they're right in the moment, like by definition, and sometimes they actually will be. But like if you had to put your money on it, they're probably wrong.
Who knows, right? Like our video was like, we were like, we're little nerds, like pick us. We also met on Tinder. We're like these crazy.
We just moved in together.
Yeah, we're like
we're
these crazy kids. Like we've been dating for 5 months and we moved in together.
I have diabetes. We made sure to mention that.
Yeah, like we were like, everyone thinks we're crazy. Like keep sort of, like let's continue this trend of everyone thinking we're this insane couple by setting us on this reality TV show. Like who knows what will happen?
We did have a checklist of things we wanted to sort of hit in the interview. Like because I'm assuming people might be watching thinking they want to do this themselves, right? Like we did do that amount of planning where we were like, these are a couple things we just want the producers to know. But you just kind of like talk, right? And then like, oh, by the way, I have diabetes. He has diabetes. Like, it's a big challenge. Look, and he overcame it, right? Like, you can easily just say something that way. Like,
yeah, and I think a lot of what maybe authenticity is the word, although it's funny when it's planned because that's like not the point. But like the video that they sent us is the sample video of like what a good
Tim and Marie
was Tim and Marie, who were hilarious. I don't know if you've seen their season. They're like teeth gold.
They were exes.
Yeah, they were exes when they were on together. But their video was like very funny and sort of obviously like candid and very like bantery. And we were like, okay, got it. Like that's basically all we know how to do. So we'll just do it. And
Marie's like, Tim, we're doing it now. Get your ass over here.
Yeah,
I forget what it was, but like it's obviously like I think she probably may have told them like sort of what was going to happen, but like the whole point was that they didn't need to plan it because then you'll get Tim being like,
Yeah, no, and it's great. And like our dynamic was, our dynamic is obviously different from theirs, but in the same way, it's like, can you interrupt each other and like, be, I don't know, I guess interesting enough to watch. I still don't really, I feel lucky. Like, I don't really, to be honest, I don't get it. And I think that there are so many people that are exactly like us that would have been just as good. And I think we were just in the right place at the right time, which is how so much of this stuff happens.
Yeah, I also think I agree with that. I also think that it's a lot easier to be authentic, and it's 100% true. Like that's got to be the number one thing, right? But like it's a lot easier to be authentic in this context if authentic you is being really excited about trying to get on the race.
Right.
Like just say that and say why you think you'd be great. And like also, hey.
Yeah, we're both very excitable. That's true.
No, it's clear. I mean, and just talking to you now, you can see it. And I would imagine that if that was, even if that answer was your video, that video would end, I would be like, wow, they were really authentic. They were really interesting. And I like
what I will say they did though. What they did do, which was really funny, is we like sent in our video and then that was whatever. And we got a call from our casting, the guy that like, basically you have like one of a couple
holds your hand through the whole time.
They're like you're basically your mother through the whole thing,
and your advocate. Like it's almost like recruiting, right? Like they want to do a good job, invest in the right people, get them through the door.
But my favorite thing is so you like submit photos of yourself when you submit your video, and our guy called us and we spent so much time being like, these are our best photos, like we look so good in these 2 photos. And then he called us and he was like, those, you don't look good in those, and they're also just not good photos, so you need to do better. And we were like, shit.
I actually think it might have been even more casual
brutal.
and cutting. I think he just sent us an email and he was like, all your material is great, but can you send good photos?
And we were just like, shit. And so convinced one of Leo's friends, we like made up some stupid lie and convinced one of Leo's friends, who's like a sort of professional photographer on the side, to take photos of us. She thought we were like scheming engagement or something, which also speaks to our relationship that like 5 months in, she thought we were going to get engaged. But it was very funny to be like, we just need these high quality photos in which we look very good. Yeah, that was great, and really cut your ego to bits.
So you have the great video, you have you get the person that kind of holds your hands through it, as you said, you get great photos. And then you're on the fast track and you get the actual call. What's the actual call like to get it?
So at that point, so the final call was only about 4 or 5 weeks before. We had gotten a lot of really strong signals that it was going to happen. And we're like sending emails to them being like, we got to start shopping.
Well, it's also hard. I mean,
for like
here's the thing.
backpacks
Like,
and stuff.
you get the call that you're in finals, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. And then you're in.
Well, that's finals. He's asking about the final call, I think.
Well, I mean,
either
but
way,
it's complicated, right? Because it's like you get
there's
that
a lot of calls.
Yeah, you get that first call, and
Okay.
you're like, oh my God, holy shit, this is real, and like, what an incredible, like, we have actually a shot at making it onto the show. And then you go to finals week, and it's so stressful, and there's all these people there, and everyone is like hotter and like looks more interesting than you, and you spend.
Could have been on shows.
Yeah,
Like we
you
knew
were
there
just
were some
like-
professional
And
athletes.
How many
you didn't
people?
like any of them. I have no idea. A lot.
Yeah, the first time we went, there were probably like 15, 20 teams, and we thought that was the final pool.
We thought that was it, and then we had to go back again, and like
Much,
it was
well,
like
also we thought those were the only finalists.
Right.
But much later, we realized there was a whole
was
separate
a
group that
whole
had come
other
3
set.
months later, earlier.
Yeah, so we were like, it was really like, we finished the end of that week and we were like, we're doing so great. Like, we actually feel pretty good about ourselves. And then one of the casting agents sort of let slip that there was another group of people coming, and we were like, no. And so we were really, I think we were more on pins and needles after, because we knew that like, we really cared, right? Like, that's when you're invested. You've been in LA, you've done all this stuff. You've like really tried to flirt with all these people and all these cameras and like get it done. And then you get another call, and then you're back for another set of finals. And then you're like, shit, like what?
It's torturous.
What do we have to do? And really at the end, at the end of that, like I just felt so exhausted. Because you have to be on whenever you would sit in your hotel room, and then they would call you, and you'd have to be on for like 2 hours for interview, for like video test and whatever. I have like really no idea what they did with any of the footage that they did.
There could be a new producer in the room who's never heard of you, and they see you and you're not on, and they decide you're a dud.
Yeah, and so it was this like constant stress of like needing to be the kind of on that you are like so. I mean, like really, you're rarely that up for more than an hour of your life, and then it was like periodic points every hour, like every other hour for a week, and you were just like felt insane.
It's funny because it's an audition, right? But you're not, during the show, you're not always up. Like during the show, you're really kind of just trying to get around, right? And like get things done. I'm almost wondering, like, what if they were to totally reinvent the application process, like put you on a mini Amazing Race with like actual challenging challenges, right? Just tell them that like, it's not going to be the final decision, but if you do well in this like audition race, then, you know, you'll have a better chance of getting on. And then they'll actually see how you like do with puzzles and like how you respond and how you like sabotage other teams.
But I don't think they really care how we do. Like,
no, but just how you do in that situation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's also way more expensive than locking us in a hotel. I mean, it would be so much more fun, right? Like we were just locked in hotel rooms. Like we didn't do anything.
Yeah, we were just put in front of producers and told to like, you know, answer questions, but also like show us everything about who you are in this hour.
Yeah, it was really, and then at the end of, so that happened, and we were like, well, you know, we've done our best, and you've done everything you can. Like you've taken all these like psych tests, and like you've gone through all these intelligence tests, and they've drawn your blood, and you're like, God knows what's going to happen.
You want to make sure you're not too smart, but not too dumb.
Yeah, right. Like, and that was it. And then God, I remember that because I kept trying to get our casting person to tell us who scored higher on the intelligence test, and he wouldn't tell me.
I think at one point,
so mad.
I think at one point
he kept winking at Leo, and I was like, what does that mean?
Because Alana was the one asking. So at one point, I think he was just like, it was Leo, and they were like, really? And he was like, maybe.
I was so annoying. I still want to know that. And I think at that point we were like, all right, well, like there's literally nothing else we can do. And then it was like 4th of July weekend. It was the vacation of 4th of July. We were in Arizona visiting. We were in Arizona with Leo's family. We had just hiked.
Are you talking about when we got the final?
That was
in Bend.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, because that's a month before the race started.
No.
Okay, well.
Because they had already made the sign for us when we got there. Your mom had made that congratulations sign. But we knew before Bend.
We disagree on the timeline.
Okay.
Anyways, my memory of the call that feels momentous is the call right after or before we hiked the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of huge calls. And anyway, there was like.
Really?
I mean, We totally can. No, we can totally hash it out on the top podcast.
Right.
Yeah,
it's not exciting to watch though. This is like not exciting.
It might be. This is like a huge, like dramatic disagreement.
Yeah,
I don't think it's dramatic. I don't really
could
know. I just thought that when we showed up in Bend, your mom had made that sign.
So here's why I think it was Bend. So some of my family lives in Oregon. I think it was Bend because I remember we were like anxious about like needing the final yes, and that was like within 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay, so here's why this is a TMI moment. Here's why I know it was before Bend, because when we were training in Bend, which we thought was a good idea because Bend in Oregon is like really high altitude level, which like hilariously ended up really mattering because in Bogota, the elevation is really high. And so that was actually quite helpful. But my whole body hurt because I had already had the IUD inserted because I did not want to be bleeding all over myself while I was on The Amazing Race. And so we already knew and I'd already done that stuff.
Okay. I mean, I don't really remember it that way, but
you don't need a final answer, guys. I need a final answer. Where was the final call?
We can get back to you. I mean, it's very easy to check. We can just look at our emails.
That's true. Yeah. And then really after that, everything fell into place. Like then I started having to like try to figure out a good lie to tell my job because my job definitely wouldn't let me go. And that was all sort of exciting from there because we knew we were going to do it. We just needed to figure out how.
Yeah, Alana's job was not cool with her disappearing for a month.
I mean, obviously not. I was like,
well, but mine was. Is what I was gonna say.
It's understandable.
They were not going to let me take a month off of work so that I could go on a reality TV show. Like,
it's a hard sell to make, even though it is The Amazing.
I told my job that I was going on an adventure,
and then they let him go. Like they approved his leave.
They're like, "Oh, you're a hobbit."
Explanation. Like that infuriates me. It's fine. I just really like.
Wait, it just said reason, and you wrote adventure.
Adventure.
It was a small enough segment of a company that I was like, I have to, is what I said. And they were like, that does seem necessary.
So annoying.
It was like, I'll be back. They wanted me to reassure them that it wasn't business or work related. I wasn't starting another company. You know, I was,
that makes sense.
But it was a vision quest.
Yeah. Leo went on a vision quest without any ayahuasca, unfortunately.
So tell me about, you're in the Hollywood Bowl. Phil shows up.
Oh my God.
Got his arm raised. What is that moment like?
Well, the Hollywood, I mean, so this is a great question and one we haven't talked about. I have a couple of memories in the Hollywood Bowl. So for context, we were probably at the Hollywood Bowl for like 3 or 4 hours filming all of that stuff where we like jog up and like whatever.
I like the fake slow jog.
Oh yeah. And they also had us like you would do it, and they were like, "That wasn't a good slow jog. Do it again." And you'd be like, "Okay, right." Like it was real. Yeah. It was.
There were a couple teams who got on the first.
Yeah,
track.
Gary and D'Angelo were obviously good at all of that stuff.
There were also that was the first time before the start line when we were like allowed to speak with other teams. Like they basically before then it was all unlocked because they don't want you to develop your relationship before the cameras are rolling. But at that point, the cameras were basically rolling, and also it was like. Basically,
they couldn't corral us. It was really like there were a couple of exciting things about that first. Like, well, one, I grew up in LA, so like the Hollywood Bowl is a place where I like went to go see concerts when I was a kid, and it was like really wild to be there in that context. Like, it was just such a cool. I was like, I'm standing on the stage where I saw like Death Cab for Cutie when I was 14. Like that was like I sort of continued to blow my mind over and over again. One, it was when we told. It was so cool. I mean, like the thing about it is like, we were all told that we were going to our finale, our beginning of the race was in LA, which is often how it goes. Like sometimes it's in random other places, but everyone as a cast sort of, we know none of us really consulted with each other, but we all were like, okay, cool. It's LA. It's like, I mean, it was November, but we were like, it's going to be warm. And so all of us dressed poorly. Like we were freezing. It was so cold. And I have such a strong memory of like Leo holding me in between takes because I was like so shivering in that stupid tank top that I thought made me look cute. And like, but it was also like I have like a forever memory of like shivering in between us, like them making us run up the ramp to the Hollywood Bowl, which we did like 10 times. And Leo turned to me and he said, "Happy 10-month anniversary," because it was literally our 10-month anniversary.
Well played.
For our first date.
That's awesome.
And I was just like, what is our life? Like, how is this happening? Do you want to tell
so
about
I guess it was November 9th.
Yeah, it was exactly November 9th. I need to go check the food that I
What
put
were you
in
going to suggest I tell about?
You should tell about like actually Phil answer the question that he asked.
Oh, yeah. Well, so, and on the like weather thing, like we were all freezing, but a lot of the reason, like in LA, it gets cold after dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could have been 50. I mean, that's not that cold if you think about it. But if you're dressed in shorts and a t-shirt and you're standing still for 3 hours, like waiting for the start, you don't know when it's going to happen. You have no real way of getting warm except for occasionally they let you go to the bathroom and it might be a little warmer in there. But like generally, you're just standing out in the middle of a cold desert. Phil says go.
Yeah, he walks on
funny,
stage.
like,
He comes out. It's about to start. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, also he talks to us for a while before we start, right? Like they get those sound bites. And so that in a way, that's like the first time that we are like really, we're on camera. Like we know that this is going to be potentially what they show, like that joke about the glasses and Gary's who like, you know, took his weight off or whatever.
Gary was like, you calling me fat? But it was weird because those were all like, I felt like I felt so jittery.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that was the first moment that like that was the race had basically begun. Like people started shit talking. Like we were angling.
It was also
started.
a totally terrifying experience because you're standing up there and you're in that little circle and Phil's like, everyone talk about each other. And then I can't remember, someone pointed at Kelly and Levon and they were like, we think that you're Olympians. And in my mind, I was like, no way, like Olympians, like that's insane. Olympians are like way too good to do like what? And then they were like, that is correct. And I was just like, what the fuck?
Like you got us.
Yeah, it was like such a terrifying moment of being like, we are competing with literal Olympians. Like, how are we supposed to do this? And it was a real, like, it made it all real.
I think when Phil said go, we actually weren't sprinting out of the gate like some of the other teams. Yeah. I think that our approach, and I don't know if this was right or wrong, but like our approach was, we really don't want to screw this up. Like, I think you can actually hear in the first scene, Alana or me, I forget, saying like, careful on the hill, right? Because like you could twist your ankle with like 45 seconds after the race starts. Yeah. And so I remember actually being a little surprised. It's weirdly anticlimactic when he says start and like, then you're sprinting, but you're sprinting at a time when it's almost certain that like, that's not going to be what is a deciding factor. Right. Like you find the clue, like, maybe you're the first one off the stage. Maybe that hurts you in some way. You don't know from the very beginning. You don't really know what's the right decision.
We were and that's true. Like there are two things to add to that for like the fans that are watching. One is we had a very jet and cord philosophy about like any sort of like physical exertion, which is like if you jog always, you'll beat everyone. Like Jet and Cord were always jogging through all of their seasons, and they always did really well. Like you don't ever need to really sprint, but also. I was convinced, I think as with Leo and a bunch of the other teams too, that we were going to run to our clues and open them and the clue was going to say, search the Hollywood Bowl. Mm-hmm. And so I was sort of like, I need to conserve my energy because there's a high likelihood in like true Amazing Race fashion, they're going to make us run all of these bleachers and find like a clue glued underneath a seat, you know? And I was like waiting for that and was really surprised actually. Honestly, that leg became so incredibly difficult later on that I understand why they didn't. But at that moment, it was surprising that there wasn't anything in the Hollywood Bowl that we were doing. Like that felt weird as a race fan. I was like, but where's my needle in a haystack challenge? Like that's always how the show begins, is like the one where they're running through the air balloons in California or whatever.
And that's where I'm like hesitating on me saying like the sprint didn't matter or like wouldn't matter for sure, because like there are seasons where teams are eliminated at the start line. Like you obviously don't want to be that team. I still have a hard time believing that the first one off the stage is what really matters. I remember Gary and D'Angelo, you had to go to the left or the right, but like the left was closer to where you needed to go. And Gary and D'Angelo went to the right, and then they're just like pounding across the whole stadium, right? Like we were barely off the stage by the time they had like run along an entire row of seats and we're like basically at the front of the pack.
I mean, and then we got in the second cab. Like, I think that's really it. We were the last off the stage and we got into the second cab, which like didn't matter at all because then we raced to LAX and then we sat at LAX for 5 hours and Michelle like chit-chatted with Wolfgang Puck, which is a hilarious I don't know if you talked to her about this, but Wolfgang Puck was at LAX and Michelle like chatted with him, and the way that they edited it made her look insane, but in reality they were like just talking. It was very unfair for Michelle, but very funny. But yeah, that was really, I mean, it was really, you're just trying to figure out who people are, like not even as racers, but just as people. Like who are these, like, you know, who are these insane humans that have decided to do this thing with you?
Yeah, I think it's very, like that moment at the start's probably very different for different teams. Like I think Kelly and Lavon and Gary and D'Angelo, in my mind, stand out as teams who, and it shouldn't surprise you, saw it right off the bat as a race. Mm-hmm. They were going to be in the front. I think our team and others, Madison and Riley come to mind for some reason, are teams who, like at that point, I wanted to make the right decision. I wanted to sort of use my energy strategically, not get injured, right? Like I think there are teams who have that approach, but you don't really know what's right in any given situation. And don't even get me started on reading the clue and knowing what to pay close attention to and which rules you actually need to follow.
Oh my goodness.
Like, what are you going to be penalized for if you cut a corner?
No, and it's interesting to hear that was your strategy. You knew you're not Olympians. You know you're not former professional athletes.
Yeah.
But you used those, you measured yourself there and you said, okay, this is what's going to work for us. And we don't want to do what the guy did on the Santa Monica Pier in like the 5th or 6th season.
Yes.
And be done 6 feet in front of you. Like,
oh my God, I know. And like, that's really, I also like Leo and I have a soft spot for all the people that leave for medical reasons on like Survivor and Amazing Race. Like that's when we cry. I think that's always a deep fear. Like you lose your passport and you like break your leg, like everything else you can get over. But those are the two things that are just like insurmountable. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we've come to this point of the,
Is that our next clue?
It's your next clue. I have to open it for you. I have to open it for you though, because you're.
All right, tear it open. You have to don't throw the garbage on the ground.
Keep the trash. You have to keep the trash. Okay. Yeah.
All right, it's a roadblock. You ready?
Who's
all right, so this person.
You get to read it first.
Truth or truth? This person should be a truth teller.
You should do it.
I'll try.
Leo's gonna do it.
All right. It's just questions.
I did the first roadblock on the race, so.
It's true, yeah, that's only fair.
Okay, so which leg of the race was the best and why?
Paraguay, the kids in the orchestra, inspiring, crafty, something I was good at.
Yeah, Leo played
our first third place finish.
One of our first top threes. Yeah, Leo played violin. Leo plays violin, and so he like really especially enjoyed that challenge.
Kazakhstan is a close second. I think we would go back to Kazakhstan in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my next roadblock question. Which country or cultural experience stands out the most?
I mean, culturally, it's funny, like the cultural experience, like, and I've said this before, but I really like, there isn't a second answer for me. Going to the Amazon and cooking with that tribe was.
The Desana tribe.
Was truly a I mean, what Nathan and Cody say this all the time, and I love this like phrase, like was once in 100 lifetimes. Like that's the kind of thing, right? Like, and I mean that in the sense of like, I can imagine 8 generations of our children and none of them will also get to do that either. Like what an incredible experience that like money can't buy. But also the kind of thing that we couldn't we couldn't show up again on a boat and be like, sup, like Desana tribe, like here to cook more yummy food. And I think for that reason, like the place we'd go back
Anyone need a shelter?
Oh my God. Yeah. Chief Pignon would be like, screw you guys. You sucked at building that hut. Like I gave you that clue to make you feel good.
Number 3, hardest part of the race, Leo.
The spears, just having, I suppose early in other challenges, we were equally confused. I could have gone on for much longer with sauerkraut, that I was at a similar level of sort of perplexment, if any of those are a word, with sauerkraut, but I managed to kind of pull it together and like feeling, let me put it this way. Every challenge sort of starts out like we start out with the spears, right? Like you don't know, you can't fix it. Like you don't know what you're doing wrong. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing wrong at the yurt at first, even though we ended up getting through it pretty quickly. But just for hours, not knowing which way to go, not knowing what to try harder at, not having really anything in your arsenal. Like there's that one clip that there was much more footage of out there of us just staring at each other, hugging, not knowing what to try next.
Yeah, the hardest challenges are the ones where you feel stuck and you like actually don't know what else to try. Like I don't think we ever hit that at any other point in the race besides the spears, where we were like everything else is hard. Like it's hard for me to get on the tire rope, but I also know I can get across it. Like it's hard for us to decorate the truck, but we know that we'll get it right. It's hard for us to build the hut, but we know what we did wrong. Like with that, we couldn't figure it out.
Well, and I think we were at that point with the truck at first. It just didn't last that long. Like we didn't know what we were getting wrong. We got checked in a bunch of times. We even got the horn done, and then we got checked in again. Right. That's the common theme of the race. But when you like just the longer that lasts, the harder it is.
Yeah.
Number 4, the thing you'll miss the most. Or that you miss the most, rather.
Yeah. I think just the excitement of being able to go to new places I've never been. Every challenge was so exciting to take on. Like there wasn't a single challenge or even a single side of the detour where I was like, I wouldn't want to do that. Right. Mm-hmm. Like just compared to a day job at a desk, like I miss that.
Yeah.
Last one. Where did things go right?
Where did things go right?
Was there a follow-up, and where did things go wrong?
Well, I was going to say that, but I think I'd keep it positive because you already said that. You already talked about fears.
Yeah. No, I think I can talk more generally, though. Like, things went right. I think this one's pretty easy, pretty obvious. Things went right, and that we were supportive of each other. We didn't lose our temper with each other. We knew how to sort of lift each other up and make each other feel good. We were really a strong team. I think just logistics of it, like every time we went back to the hotel room to like crash for 8 hours or whatever, we had a system with our laundry. We would order our food, we would sleep, we would watch TV, like anything to recharge. And then during the legs, as you saw, like as soon as you're at each other's throats, that's going to hurt you in the game.
Yeah.
And where did things go wrong? Also pretty easy. I think we overthink things. We struggle to know what to focus on. That's a form of intelligence that, you don't learn in school. You're not necessarily born with, even if you're good at, something else. We were really surprised by how much we struggled with the detail challenges. I think in life, we're really detail oriented when we know what to focus on. But that can sort of carry you in the wrong direction also if you get fixated on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So Alana, let's talk about alliances. Overrated, underrated, properly rated?
I mean, that's great. That's a great question. I love that. I mean, I guess it depends who you're asking, right? But like,
this is your question here.
No, this is great.
I think Alana's saying that alliances are very poorly rated in general. Are they underrated though?
Yeah, I don't know, right? Like if you ask Will and Jim's, they're going to be like underrated, right? But I mean, I think the race is changing, right? Like it's funny, like so many seasons in, 32 seasons in, the race is really changing.
As
and
Jeff Probst would say.
And that's exciting to watch. Like it's exciting to have been a part of. Unfortunately, we were on the wrong side of that change, but like we were really operating in the old race mentality, which is like you help a team, they help you out, you're square. Like that is sort of the way that we've watched the race. Like you build connections with people that are like very natural and organic. And then those sort of like those people can help you out or they can't. Like we did that. I mean, it's easy to see that with Haley and Kaelin, but we were doing that with all the other teams. We were doing that with Aparna and Ishwar when we helped them with sauerkraut. We were doing that with Gary and D'Angelo and teams that like aren't like we worked with a lot of teams in that way and sort of we're trying to breed that goodwill. I wouldn't call that an alliance, nor did we ever want to call what we had with Haley and Kaelin, especially especially in Alliance, because we didn't want that target. I mean, hilariously, we had that target on our backs anyways, like, so whoops, but whatever.
We weren't thinking of it that way.
We weren't. And like, I mean, I think in like 5 years, if the race still exists, like and I hope that it does, I think that what Will and James are doing with this strategy and not just Will and James, but Hung and Chi and Madison and Riley, and to it, like, and also the second tier alliance, which I find hilarious.
I consider us to be in the third tier of the alliance.
Yeah, we're just in the third tier. I mean, I think that people are going to be doing what they're doing because it works, right? Like, we're 5 of the 6 teams in this next episode are in that alliance. 100% of that alliance is in the next episode. So it's incredible. Like, I'm sort of jealous of it, but it's also sort of not the way that we thought about running the race. It's not really anything we ever would have considered. Like, we were out here trying to run our best race, and we didn't consider that might include other people to such an extent. And that's sort of a failing on our part. I mean, it makes for worse TV. Like, that sauerkraut challenge is such a bummer because, like, a real Amazing Race fan, like, those are the challenges that are hilarious to watch because someone's like screaming their way down the building for hours, like, such good TV. And instead it was just like, oh, it's sauerkraut, jog, 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 which was a bummer to watch. And also a bummer because Leo was one of 2 people to actually get that answer, right? Like, Leo and Hung were the only people to ever get sauerkraut themselves. And so that's like a bummer for us as a team because we were like at the end of the pack in Berlin. But like, whatever. I mean, they thought of something we didn't think of. Like, it sucks for us.
Yeah, I'm all for like doing what works to your advantage, and that's the reason they're doing the alliance. It's not to be friends, but I do think the race could do some things to make it more challenging to have an alliance. Like, I think that would be natural.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I realized today, so like, you know, totally over it, totally good. One thing I realized today is that, so when we were in Kazakhstan, our clue at the Spears Challenge said in it, you cannot help other teams. And we know that the clues are printed like a day before, like the clues are, like they print the clues when we get to the beginning of the leg. And I'm convinced, and I also heard from Gary and D'Angelo that sort of similar language of like, don't help another team appears in other clues in future legs, or in this next leg rather, mega leg.
Mega leg.
I feel really frustrated because that language was in our clue at the Spears Challenge because of the alliance. And as a result of that, Haley and Kaylin couldn't help us. So the alliance screwed us over by making them change the rules of the game in a way that only benefited the alliance, which is like so frustrating, but also like good on them.
Yeah.
Because I really do believe Haley and Kaylin would have worked with us at that challenge.
We could have at least tried to convince them to.
I mean, I think they would have because we were there first and we knew 3 of the 4 answers. So they could have given us the 4th answer. And
that
we
would
knew
have been
we were
trying to convince us.
And I think at that point we had goodwill, even though Leo, you know, like didn't help her with sauerkraut and it's all karma or whatever bullshit.
That's what I was trying to say, is that there might have been some frustration with us because of sauerkraut, but then it's on us to try to sort of woo them into talking to us. And what?
Did you see the behind the scenes footage after sauerkraut?
I did.
Yeah, and like the behind the scenes footage after sauerkraut is them in a car being like, we would have done the same thing. We're not really mad at Leo for not helping us. Like,
I'm not suggesting there was a vendetta. I'm just saying that what we didn't even try to do was convince them to help us. I'm saying in the event that they weren't willing to volunteer the information right off the bat, we could have spoken our piece and said, listen, what was I supposed to do? As the behind the scenes footage shows, they probably would have been very receptive to that. We would have said, now we're going to owe you one, just like you owed us one back in the day. But we were very cautious not to even like initiate any contact with them or really speak with them because the clue was super clear.
The clue was like, don't you dare even consider helping another team or else. It was really like, and so that sucks. But also like, I mean, you know, they're trying to make it good TV. And I think they realized that the sauerkraut challenge was failed to good TV. So they were, you know, and then we made good TV by failing at that challenge because we didn't get help. So like, there you go.
So if they put that stuff in future races, and honestly, I think they probably should, then there can still be alliances where people are, you know, do what's best for your game. But like, just like you can't help your partner when they're doing a roadblock, like there could be some rules between teams for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you come into the problem of people not reading the clue. And then they would get the clue anyway.
Then they get a fucking penalty.
I mean, maybe. Yeah. It depends on how poorly they're reading it. Yeah. That's hilarious. I didn't
wait a minute. Oh.
There's our next clue.
Oh. Okay. All right.
Detour.
So you have
Alana, it's a detour.
Oh, I really have to pick right.
Boys or girls?
Girls.
Girls.
Girls,
Who
good.
rule the world?
Always girls.
So, question number one: which girl or girls did you get along with the best? I think I know the answer, and why?
Okay, so here's a twist answer for you that has to do with Sequester, which is that the person that I got along with best in Sequester was Kelly, and that's the reason why Kelly is going to officiate our second wedding, but was supposed to officiate our first wedding.
That's awesome.
I was really an incredible, Kelly is such a mentor to me now. Like, she's been really helpful as I continue to feel sad about not everyone loving me on TV, which is not surprising, but also I'm not good at that. And I love her dearly. I mean, the truth is we will be in all of the women and all of the men on the race. We'll be friends forever. And I that's one of those annoying, you write that in your yearbook and it's not true. We will all be friends forever. And it's only in small part because we're bonded through this experience, and in large part because we all care for each other so deeply. Also Haley and Kaylin, obviously, but that's a boring answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's known, but yeah, we felt really drawn to them from the very beginning. As people are starting to see in the edit, their energy is really special.
They're really fun to race with because they were always upbeat, and on a race that can really get you down. That's such a nice energy to be around. I will always pick that.
They're like that every day, and if we zoom to them, it just lights things up.
Yeah.
So who would you want to partner with on a second race?
Okay, so I know
each of us.
Yeah, this is a great question. So I pick. I mean, I think your answer is better, but you've already given it.
I forget.
So Leo picked Chi, which I think is a great pick.
You can have Chi.
Chi, Chi is just Chi is, especially for someone who's anxious like me, Chi is such a calming influence, and he's so good at everything he does. And I think that
he's like me, but better at challenges.
Chi is true. And also even Chi is a kind.
No, I know.
Leo's calm and Leo's steady, and Chi is calm. I can't really explain it more than that, but there's a difference.
It's true.
And then my wild card pick is James, because James also has a lot of Leo's energy, extroverted, here to scheme. And I think I find Will and I are very similar people. If we're breaking down all the couples into part, I am like Hung, I am like Will, I am in the dating couples. And so for that reason, I always want to pick the other end of that dating couple, because I know that they balance each other out, and I see myself and Will a lot. We have sort of similar interests and sort of similar ways about going about the world. We've also both been on America's Next Top Model. And so I think also James is just good at the game. I think he'd be a fun person to race with.
I'm sorry, I can't accept your answers because you chose girls and you chose two. You chose all.
Oh no, I did choose two men. Okay, which woman would I race with? Oh, Leo also picked Michelle, which I think is a great guess.
Yeah, so I'll answer since I have my answer.
No, it's my detour.
No, isn't it? Is it?
The detour, both of you.
It's both of us.
Oh, right. It's
yeah,
both
you
of
already
us.
had your roadblock. Right. I picked Michelle. I think that as sort of as wacky as Michelle is in so many ways, she's also, I think, very practical. It's almost like she has learned how to be practical because she has such she's wired so differently, and she sort of interacts with the world so differently that she has had to figure out how to get things done. And meanwhile, I think many people don't see that because they're so distracted by, Michelle being Michelle. And I've just seen her be so capable in so many different situations, follow through on her word. She's actually a very serious person in a sense, sort of serious about saying what she means and meaning what she says, and doing what she says she'll do, and all that good stuff that you don't get from the sound bites. And even though we both drive stick, which is kind of a waste, but I would pick Michelle.
And so Alana, lady, girl.
Well, if I have to pick a lady, I'm racing with Vic, because Vic is a challenge monster.
Yeah, we were terrified of Michelle and Vic.
I thought they were we
thought they were top three. Easy.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. My two top three were Hung and Chi, because they were so perpetually good at everything thing, Michelle and Vic, because they were like not even secret. They could just dominate in challenges. And then my last one was sort of up in the air, and I was like, maybe it'll be us, Leo. And like that was And I'm curious to see, I'm curious to see what the final three is.
Yeah, we thought we saw weaknesses in other teams, including ourselves, but obviously we thought we could pull through. Like we thought we had strengths that other people didn't see.
Yeah.
We didn't see that many weaknesses in Michelle and Vic, and especially because the weaknesses that you saw in the edit, namely
that's always they're on their own. They
navigation,
get lost.
right?
Yeah.
We didn't know about any of that, but we saw them beasting challenges.
Yeah, no one knew that. Like no one knew like that hilarious when they're like running around the Amazon trying to find the clue. Like no one knew about that. And of course they're not going to tell you because then they look like a weak team.
And I actually think that's part of why we would pick them, because I think Alana and I both would we wouldn't get lost. Like we were very intuitive, I think, with navigation, and we also would have noticed that glue box. That's pretty obvious.
Oh, bless him.
So I'll let you go. I got my last couple questions here.
All right.
But talk to me about the coming into the yield.
You want to answer that?
That moment, what do you, when you get yielded, what does it tell you? What's going through your mind? What's the approach?
I mean, yeah, like I think there were two competing things, and I'll let you say, like the two competing things in our minds were, oh my gosh, every single person is at this detour still, or wrote this route info still. Like that's incredible. Like that was, I think, our first thought was we thought we were done for, and we were like, people have those legs where they never see another team. We were convinced that we were convinced that when Haley and Kaylin left us at the spear challenge, that was it.
Well,
and so
2 hours passed, and then,
right. Like
when they left us, we were fine.
Right. But I was like, that's the last team we'll have seen on our entire race experience. It was like a sort of fear I had. It was like, oh my gosh, we've been at this challenge for so long. So that was an incredible.
But this is also where we're different, right? Like Alana had that fear as soon as Haley and Kaylin left.
Totally. I'm a lot more pessimistic as a person.
That was a theme throughout the race, for better or worse.
Yeah. And then the other thought was just sort of like, well, fuck, like this, and especially because it was a 20-minute yield, right? Like you were like, if these stupid girls had got a 10-minute yield, this would have been so much of a softer blow. And so you're just sitting there and it's freezing. Like, honestly, it was like, it's freezing cold. All the producers are surrounding you being like, ha ha ha, you've been yielded. And you're just like, fuck me. Like, what? Like, we just spent so long at that other thing and now we have to deal with this. But
I think my reaction is pretty different and probably less relatable, honestly, because like Alana's reaction makes total sense. I got there, I thought this is kind of a drop in the bucket compared to what we just did. Like waiting 20 minutes, beautiful scenery. Like Alana said, we saw the other teams, so like that was a huge lift. It was a drop in the bucket. It was also like the cherry on top, right? Like, well, great. Now that we finally got here,
this is our bad leg.
Let's wait another 20 minutes and then carry on with our day.
Yeah,
and the final thing is that is like exactly the same situation as me leaving Haley behind at sauerkraut. So like there's nothing it would be crazy to think there was something personal about that.
Right. Like we weren't, I mean, like I know in the band we were like, we don't think they would U-turn us, but also like I don't know why I think probably part of it was I thought that we didn't think we would yield them. I didn't think that they would yield us, but I sort of thought that someone would, right? So like, because I didn't know that they were the second to last team to show up. But then when we learned that, when we were on that, like watching the episode, it was like, yeah, of course they're going to yield us, but also so would, in that situation, that was such a tough leg. Like obviously everyone was at that yurt challenge also for a zillion years. Like
we didn't know anyone's placements besides Haley and Kaylin and Hung and Chi relative to our own.
Right. And so, but it was like, of course you're going to do, like
no one else did the con challenge.
Of course the second to last team is going to yield the last team. Like what, that's literally the point of the yield. Like the yield is sort of useless, honestly. And 10 minutes really is just like a sort of poking someone in the eye when they're crying, but
it was a great opportunity.
Second to last.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's second to last, it could make the difference.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad they did it. Like they're also game players. And honestly, we would have done the same thing to them. And I think everyone knew that. So.
Yeah. My friends, Josh and Lizzie, who remind me of the two of you actually a lot. I love to bounce things off of them and the other podcasts that we do. And Josh is so adamant. You got to use the yield or the U-turn only to knock somebody out. Mm. And I think that's what they did. And like you said, somebody was going to yield some in that leg.
So Leo has a fun fact about Haley and Kaylin, which I don't know how you learned this, but Haley and Kaylin are the only team in race history they're the only team in race history to have ever used a yield and a U-turn, but they're also the only team in race.
By virtue of only being the team that had done that.
Right.
They're also the only team.
The teams that they targeted always went out. Like they targeted Frank and Jerry and the U-turn, Frank and Jerry left. They targeted us at the yield. They left. Like, I think it's sort of like, it's sort of remarkable and fun. Like I appreciate that.
We have a place in history as being U-turned and yielded. I don't know if we're the only ones, but I do know they have a more special place in history.
Yeah.
Which is more difficult, the U-turn or the yield to deal with?
The U-turn.
Oh, the U-turn for sure. Because the yield at most is 20 minutes.
The yield just is what it is.
Like the detour tasks are never shorter than like 30 or 40 minutes.
Not only that, the detour could be 3 hours if you're not good at it. The yield is only ever going to be 10, 20 minutes, or in the old days, 45 or whatever it was.
Yeah. At least it's a known entity of time.
Yeah.
And we were able to sit and watch them decorate the yurts while we were waiting.
Observe them.
So we learned a little bit, which wasn't the worst.
So my last question, you get to go to all these really great places. I hope you got to enjoy some of it. That's something I was talking to.
For sure. Yeah, 100%.
You're competing.
Our next clue is Phil at the pit stop.
Meet Phil at the mat.
So my question is, this one even has the insert.
I love it.
What's the next place for you guys? You went on the Amazing Race. You've seen all these amazing.
That's a great question.
What are you still have these amazing travel plans? COVID aside, forget about that for a second. What's next?
After COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had all these grand plans that we had been like debating over for our honeymoon, which is going to be like in our mind sort of our next big trip, right? Like, and I actually probably imagine you're in a similar boat. We like ended up going to Maine, which was really fun, and hiking around Maine for a week. Which honestly,
we went there too. Did you go?
That's great. Maine is where in Maine.
We went
Vacation
to Acadia.
Yeah. That's what you do. Yeah.
When were you there? It would have been kind of cold lately.
We went in the summer, right after.
I love that. That's hilarious.
We were there right after Labor Day.
Maine, it's the way life should be. I went to college in Maine. I love Maine. Our honeymoon, the top of our honeymoon list was Patagonia, and I can't remember what else.
We talked about like New Zealand.
Yeah, because we also wanted to go into that. Like, I think one of the things we wanted to go down into the Southern Hemisphere in part so that we could be traveling this time of year, which is like sort of sad to think about now.
Right.
But also because that's like, I've never, going as far as you could, like the Cook Islands, like going as far as you could in a direction that you could never like sort of pull off otherwise.
So we've also talked about, not explicitly for honeymoon, but could be, we've talked about doing like, on Nick Vile's season of The Bachelor, when they went to Finland and like lived that cold life with all like these, like reindeer and like big fur coats. Yeah, so we could do some kind of like, I would love to go to Alaska someday. Which isn't that exotic sounding, but it's a special place.
I think like our honeymoon plans, we were like, how can we figure out to go? We were also talking about going, like doing like a double thing where we went to like Croatia and hung out at beaches, and then went to like Eastern Europe and hung out in like mountains where Leo could speak Russian, and like we could really sort of be in like another world. And like, I think that's also both of our personalities. Like we want to hike and be adventurous, but also have like deep chill time.
We were looking for a place with beaches and mountains.
So if anyone's got any ideas, please send them our way.
Hawaii.
Well, we talked about Leo.
I love Hawaii.
Leo loves macadamia nuts.
I love the macadamia nuts. My family went there a couple years ago. I was not thinking I'd love it just because I imagined it would be like sort of kitschy and touristy, and I just loved it. Like, I'm not the most chill person, and it just worked for me. Like, it laid me back a little. I ate like
also with Leo's diabetes, it's like fun to think of
nuts
places
and fresh fish.
Yeah, it's fun to think of places where you can get like whole roasted fish or like just meat on a stick. Like that is ideal Leo food. We talked about Cape Verde too, which would have been a fun. Like there's just all these cool places where it's like, especially with the honeymoon, like you have, let's say you have 10 days or 2 weeks. Like where do you go that you'll probably never be able to go again? Like what a fun. Where are you going to go for your second honeymoon?
Well, you
gotta have a second honeymoon.
Yeah, everyone deserves it in COVID times.
No, I lived and taught in Hawaii for a short time.
Oh, cool.
And that's why I'm thinking if you guys like mountains, you like beach, you like hiking.
Macadamia nuts.
Macadamia nuts. The Kalalau Trail on Kauai. Look that.
Right.
You would
Very
love
cool.
it. It takes you it's like 22 miles round trip. You can do camping there as well.
That's fun.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Having lived there and been a teacher there and had that experience, I also would love to be there to have the honeymoon experience with my wife. And I think
I get that. Yeah. It's a totally different context. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you felt that a little bit when we were in Kazakhstan, because Leo had taught English in Novosibirsk, which is like Siberia, Russia land.
Cool.
And it was like, but when you were there, you were like there to teach, and you were like in a city and like not getting to do adventures. And then we were all of a sudden in this place, and Leo was like, this is how it is. Isn't it beautiful? Like, Alana, look at the mountains. And I was like, babe, I can see them. Like, this is very pretty. Like, also stop flirting with our taxi driver in Russian. Like, we gotta go.
The hotel we stayed at the night of our elimination was by far the most luxurious hotel that we stayed at the whole race. I think the rest of the teams did, and I remember later when we reunited with the future eliminated teams, or all the teams, they were like, oh, we're so glad to hear that you got to stay in that hotel also. Like, you weren't like immediately shipped off to sequester.
Yeah, it was really, Kazakhstan was great. Yeah, I would love to go back there. I don't know if it's our next trip, but it's definitely up there it was really pretty. And then Leo could like snowboard and do all his snow shit, so it would be fun.
Snow shit.
Well, Leo, Alana, I appreciate you guys coming on, sharing your story, your experience. Congrats on the wedding. Good luck on the next adventure. And thanks for being on the ReRACEables podcast. Appreciate it.
Thanks. And congrats to you too.
Yeah, this was a blast. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully we can talk again soon. Maybe in the
yes, please. Yeah, recap.
Love it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right. Well, I'm gonna go check on that quiche, but